Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad Farhan bin Abu Hassan and my meeting number is 273909. So today I will talk about the scandal of Mega Media. Before that, I will talk about the accounting fraud. What is accounting fraud? So accounting fraud is occur when a company employer or employees does an illegal conduct such as stealing, misrepresenting the truth amount, and misappropriating fund to others' account or resources. This crime is frequently committed by members of management who hold positions such as chief financial officer, accounting clerk, and storekeepers. All of whom are capable of committing this type of crime. There are a variety of reasons why the perpetrators who aim to commit this fraud to do so. One reason is that they are eager for money and attempting to cover up their own faults. Accounting fraud can occur in both small and large business. So now I will talk about the scandal of Mega Media. So Mega Media was found on the 30th of April 2007. They have been failed to submit the annual audit report to an account for the fiscal year ending on 30 April 2007 to the Bursa Malaysia Sdn Bhd, where the auditor discovered that Mega Media subsidiary used bank trade facilities to pay all the false trade debtor and creditors. Furthermore, the fraud that committed was to create and defraud the payment for the subsidiaries' asset purchase. To summarize, this type of accounting fraud is not and a good example in the business world. This would result the perpetrators receiving their punishment, such as going to prison for several years, as for example like the CFO of our Mega Media. They were punished to go to prison for several years, and so this mistake are made by some who are people who are greedy and for monies, and face all problem head on and resolve them honestly. And that's all from me. Thank you.
They failed to file with Bursa Malaysia its annual audit financial statements and annual report for the fiscal year ending April 30, 2007. Next, there was a lack of timely submission of audit financial statements and annual report, both of which were originally due by August 31, 2007 and October 31, 2007. Payment of 47 million in bondholder interest was missed by MTSP and MJC in 2015. Lastly, there was a fake deposit of 211 million for 30 production lines, borrowing money from the bank and then passing that money around to the different companies, so it looks like payments are being made to the creditors. Invoice totaling 334 million in receivable are found.
Now I will present about how it affected the auditor. The internal auditor is the management itself. The external auditor is well-known auditor firm, which is KPMG. They means to inform the issue to the shareholder and the people who should know about this problem. This shows the KPMG has failed in the task to whistleblow this case. In this case, there is no whistleblower because the auditor itself is supposed to be the whistleblower. As I mentioned just now, the external auditor of Mega Media Berhad is KPMG. However, they decide to change the auditor to Samshel Jasani Grant Thornton. Mega Media has not been able to send audited account and annual report to Bursa Malaysia Securities for public review for the financial year ended 30 April 2007. So that Mega Media should send at the time on 31st August and 31st October, but they won't be able to do that. The one who was expected to finish the auditor report for Mega Media Holding Berhad by end of January 2008 is Samsel Jasani Grant Thornton. Because of this, creditor hired a forensic accountant to investigate the company, who is Farrell Honson. The auditor has a responsibility to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement, whether caused by error or fault. Because of the nature of audit evidence and the characteristic of fraud, the auditor is able to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that material misstatements are detected. The auditor has no responsibility to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance that misstatements, whether caused by error or fault that are not material to the financial statement, are detected. Having audit does not guarantee that the firm will discover every fraud in its financial statement. However, audit firm auditors are responsible for discovering substantial misstatements that occur as a result of mistake or fraud in such statements. For detecting fraud, auditors must need to have some procedure to avoid that happen due to error and fault in those statements. That's having fraud brainstorming section, performing journal entry testing, inspecting accounting estimators, and checking for significant unusual transactions.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur alias Fir binti Muhammad Rizal, matric number 280819. So now I'm going to tell you about the involvement and role of auditor in Mega Media Holdings Berhad. Mega Media Holdings Berhad was unable to make a payment to bondholders in the amount of 47 million, which means they failed to present their financial statement and substantial irregularities were discovered. They were successful in submitting their fraudulent statement to Bursa Malaysia despite the fact that they were unable to submit their yearly audits, accounts and reports to Bursa Malaysia within the required period. According to the finding of auditor, subsidiaries of Mega Media were exploiting bank trade facilities to pay off all of the fraudulent trade debtors and creditors. The auditors were aware of this fact, but they did not report it to the shareholders of the company or to the regulators regarding the bank loan and loss issue. The auditor needs to maintain communication with either the board of directors or the audit of committee. This demonstrates that Mega Media Holdings Berhad has an ineffective audit committee.
Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. My name is Muhammad Haika bin Rizal and my metric number is 280413. So I will continue to present about the involvement and roles of auditor of Mega Media Holdings Berhad. So from the article about external audit roles and responsibility of external audit, it says that examine the legality of financial paper to check whether there are any disparities in business records that are the result of fraud, inaccuracy, and misrepresentation. As a result, it increases the financial statement authenticity and credibility as the company's financial statement. We might conclude that the external auditor did not adequately check the legitimacy of all of Mega Media Holdings Berhad financial papers in the instance of Mega Media Holdings Berhad. They commissioned the forensic report in response to allegations of irregularities in the company's accounts brought to the board attention when KPMG, the auditor at the time, expressed concern regarding specific authenticity and recording transaction for which the auditor has been unable to obtain relevant verifiable data and sufficient rationalizations from the company's previous management.
Next, why an auditor is unable to detect fraud. Firstly, is it the responsibility of auditors to detect fraud? Some specialists argue that the role of the auditor is to detect fraud as an objective of the audit, while other specialists claim it was the auditor's duty to report to the shareholders all the acts of dishonesty that had happened and which affected the ownership of the content financial statement. In practice, the auditor is more likely to be suspected than to prove the frauds, although he should be able to detect all material frauds. Regardless of its nature, fraud, once detected, must be removed. There are numerous reasons why the auditors were unable to detect the fraud until it was exposed. First is time and financial constraints. Auditors, like any other project or engagement, must meet certain periodic and monetary deadlines. Due to resource constraint and tight project deadlines, audits may not be as detailed as planned. This can be seen when Mega Media failed to present their annual audited accounts and annual report to Bursa Malaysia for the fiscal year ended on 30 April 2007. Second, internal controls are heavily relied upon. Internal control evaluation heavily influences the scope of testing and the types of audit procedures used. Auditors examine the company's policies and procedures to ensure that the processes and financial statements are accurate. Internal control deficiencies are frequently repeated year after year despite increased auditing procedures, while the client continues to operate without addressing the deficiencies. In relation to the case, the problem has arisen as a result of Mega Media Management lack of internal control. Because management did not carry out their responsibilities properly, fraud occurred and went unnoticed. In that year, Kenneth Cook was the special assistant to the chairman during the case with Dato Dr. Haji Muhammad Adab. They collaborate to manipulate the company's revenue due to the shareholder payment. This circumstance make it easier for them to collaborate in order to falsify the company's financial statement. Lastly, sampling is insufficient to capture the entire story. In an audit, sampling is commonly used to test transactions. Auditors collect random samples of transactions to ensure that they were recorded correctly and that internal controls were in place and operational at the time. An inherent limitation of sampling is that not all transactions are tested, which increases the likelihood that a fraudulent transaction will not be captured in the audited sample and thus will go undetected. For Megan Media Berhad, the fraudulent transaction goes undetected until it was discovered by the forensic accountant. For example, they discovered that the payments were made by recycling cash to pay creditors through other entities to channel cash out of MTSP.